Right. So in previous meetings, we discussed importing data. And today we're going to talk about exporting, which luckily is a little bit easier than importing. So it's a lot simpler. And yeah, there's various reasons why you may want to export your data. Maybe you want to export the data, do updates to it, and re-import it. Maybe you just want to get a copy to make sure that you don't lose the data, although we do keep backups on our end also. Or maybe you want to get a copy of the data to share publicly, because the data in the database itself is all protected and controlled by the group membership. So anyway, the tools we're going to look at today are all within ArcGIS Pro. So I'll bring up my Pro client. And we will be entering the shared project that is part of the rights of way platform that all of you should have access to. We will open that project. And the first thing I always do is make sure I'm signed in I'm signed in with the user that was created by the rights of way project. And then we will open and I'm going to open we have a demo group that you should all be members of if you want to go out and kind of play around with the database, but not with your own data. You all have access to the demo group. And I'm going to open the tools package that's packaged with every one of the management groups. And you should have access to this too. And like I said, we've gone over some of these already with the import tools. Okay, so I'm going to show you really two ways you can export data. One's sort of a simpler version and one's a more complicated, sort of like we did on the import. There was kind of a quick and easy import, and there was a way you can kind of import a kind of complete copy of the database. So first thing we'll do is we want to bring your data into the map. So the way we do that is we come over to the portal and go to groups to find the group that has the REST endpoint. And it'll always be the management group. So you will only see the groups that you have access to. In this case, I've got a couple of test groups and things, but we're going to open up the management group. And all of your data is in this REST org data entry here. So we just need to drag that into the map. And that will retrieve the data from the database and bring it into the map in a little bit here. There we go. Okay, so these are, I'm going to open up. So these are the feature classes that are included in the database. The pollinator scorecard points. Most of you are entering pollinator scorecard points. Some of you are entering management areas and sites. And a few of you have done the programs also. But let's say we want to export just the pollinator scorecard points that you've entered. We should be able to see those here. We can zoom in. Hopefully they show up. Okay. I'm not seeing them. Let's open the attribute table and see what's going on. Okay. Oh, there's a point. You can barely see it. Yeah, sorry about that, but let's see if we can get something little. Well, for some reason, the points aren't showing up. This is a little embarrassing. But... Well, anyway, imagine there are points there on the map. You would simply select you draw a rectangle around the points. And there you can see them show up. And at that point, you can come over here and you can just simply say data export. It'll export all the features that were selected in that rectangle. So in this case, we'll say the output will be into, we have a demo folder, and we'll just call it that's quick export CSV. And you can export to a file of geodatabase or a shapefile or a CSV file. There may be other options too, but we're going to export just to a CSV file there. And there we go. We can go look at our demo folder here, and we should, well, it exported to a shapefile for some reason. So not sure why that happened, but in this case, it went to a shapefile. Okay. Okay, so that's kind of the quick and easy way of doing it. As you can see here, the database really is more, it's actually a handful of tables and feature classes, and they're all linked together. And if you want to export, the full kind of interrelated set of data, then that's when you need to use the tool that we provide. We provide an export tool that lets you kind of export the database kind of intact with just your data. And the way you access that is through the toolboxes in this management project. There's a shared tools toolbox. We talked about the import tool last week. The export tool is also an export tool that we're going to use. So if you open the export tool, you'll get a list of organizations. Most of you probably only belong to one organization, but you may belong to more than one. But to pick your organization, we'll do the demo organization again. And once again, we just pick the where the outputs to go. Now, this is always going to go to a file in geodatabase. So we will say, and the extension is GDB. Okay. And that's as simple as that. So we'll run that. This is going to take a little while. I like to do the view details so you can see what's going on. This demo organization actually has quite a few photos attached. So you'll see it get down to where it's exporting the photos, and it kind of sits there for a few minutes. So we'll watch that. But once again, what this is doing is this is basically taking the data in the database. It's basically a SQL server that's on the, I think it's on the UIC campus. Maybe, I'm not sure where it is exactly, but it's where we keep all of the data for all of the organizations. We're extracting out the data just for your organization and copying it down to your local system. Once it's on your local system, you can really do whatever you want with it. There's no, you don't have the the security that we around it. It's kind of on your local hard drive. You can kind of at that point, you can do whatever you want with it, including, like I say, if you want to just make updates and re-import it. With the updates, you can do that with the import tool. Okay, so you can see if you can see it, it's detaching all the photos and copying. There you go. So it finished. Okay, so now we should have a file geodatabase on our local system with all of our data, and there it is right there. And in fact, we can see it over here. If we open up our folders, we should see both the shapefile and the full database that we export. Okay, I'll take a breath here. Any questions on what we've done so far? Okay. So that's the basics of exporting. One of the questions that came up was how to export photos and how to access the photos. And there's a couple of ways. I mean, in the web map and in the in the web browser, in the pop-ups, the photos, you can see them. But also in ArcGIS Pro, if you want to access the photos, you can do that let's see, I think we can just probably click on one of the features and go over to attributes. And this one doesn't have a photo attached. Let's see. How do we do this? This one, well, okay. No, attributes. Okay, well, okay. We have to find one with a photo. I thought this one had a photo attached to it, but evidently not. Okay. Well, I'll show you how you can export all your photos in one shot. Okay, so for that, we have to access, if you want to export all of your photos, there's a tool that'll do that. And Carolyn, did you put the link to the web page in the notes or in the presentation today? That probably would be a good thing to do.
I didn't, but I can follow up with that link.
Okay, yeah. So there's actually a tech item that is reposted on how there's a tool that you can use to export all your photos. You follow the instructions. It's very simple. Basically, you've got to copy a code snippet and you've got to copy it into a toolbox, and you end up with a tool that exports attachments. And we won't go into how to do that. It's in the article, and I went through it the other day, and it took about 10 minutes to do. So it's pretty simple. Now, this export attachments will only work on a local copy of the data. So we have to export it from the database we exported. So in this full export, you'll come down, you'll see here you'll probably recognize some of these, the feature class names. The photos are stored in this pollinator scorecard attach table. And it appears there's no way you can access that on the server version of that. So you have to export that to let the tool can access it. But once that's exported, exporting your attachments is as simple as once you've followed the directions of that article and created this tool, you basically just this one, attach, specify the attach table, and then point to where you want the photos to go, and you run that. It's very quick because the photos are all local, they're not on the server anymore. And you can see we've got our photos in that folder. All right. Any other questions about photos and how to access those?
Don, there was one question in the chat. I think harking back to the first part of the exporting of the primary difference between the simple versus the complex extractions is whether the user is pulling either one form of data, just the scorecard points, or multiple layers like the points and the lines, polygons. Is that
that's exactly right. I mean, you could do an export on. You could do separate exports on all of these, but it'd be a separate CSV file, and so. And also, if they're inter networked, because some of these have pointers to each other, you would lose that. So if you want to get everything in one shot, then the export tool is probably an easier way to go. If you just want to get your your management areas, then just doing this export off the menu here probably is easier way to go.
Thank you. Are there any other questions if anyone wants to unmute in the meantime?
Another use of export would be if you're, if you're on the verge of entering a lot of new data and you're afraid that maybe you might mess something up. An export is like a save. It's saving off your data so that if you somebody's finger slips and accidentally deletes a bunch of stuff, and you can just you can always just re-import your save data. I'll show you how you would do that. If you, on the import, there's an option, this matching record, the import option. If you wanted to completely replace your data, you would say purge and replace. So you would take that exported file geodatabase, you'd specify it under the input database. You would say purge and replace, and that will kind of restore you back to the point of when you saved it. Hopefully you never have to do that, but that capability is there. Okay, shall we move on to the CCAA tool?
That sounds good, and I can swap you for sharing screens.
Okay, Caroline, are you taking over, or do you want me to?
I think
okay.
I got it. You can all see my screen now.
Very good. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so Don is going to demo the CCAA reporting tool, but I just wanted to cover a couple of details before we got started, so you would know what we were talking about if you haven't gone into the CCAA tool yet. So we have a number of terms to understand, and these are mostly just going to appear as checkboxes as you're going through the tool. But just a friendly reminder that the scoring is different per region. So we're looking for a different number of milkweed plants and different nectar resource cover. And so when you are first getting into the tool, you will see that you're selecting the region, and the differences between the dark green and the light green is where you'll be making that distinction for region. We also have a checkbox of whether you are using the CCAA report on scorecards within programs, or just scorecards that are not associated with any programs. And so, if you don't have any programs that you know about, then you can just click that scorecards with no associated programs. If you do have the programs, then those will show up as well for you to select through. And we've got more details on those sites and management areas and programs in our geospatial toolkit. So if that all sounds foreign to you, go back to our toolkit, and there are a number of resources that give details on that as well. There's also a checkbox, I believe, for baseline measurements versus post-activity measurements. And so that's just how you designated it when you were taking your scorecard points. So, was this a baseline, or was it post-conservation measures that you were doing it? And that distinction will be apparent when you're using your tool. And then the adaptive management calculations. So you can see there are two different calculations that are done when you are exporting your report. And so it'll be looking at the 10% cover or 10% milkweed versus the 90% confidence interval. And so you can see you can either have you can have a fail on the bottom and achieving it fail on the top or achieving it on the bottom, depending on the data that you're collecting. And you can export a different number, or a number of files as well. So you can export your effectiveness monitoring CSV file, which has those conservation measures that are associated, and you can submit for your CCAA report, as well as that PDF of your monitoring results calculation. So it does all of the calculations for you. And if you want to look at what the CSV file looks like, we've also got that template on the CCAA tool. So those are just some brief overviews of what Don's going to show you, but Iris or Dan, am I missing? I see you're both on. Am I missing anything else?
Maybe just one quick point of clarification, Caroline, back to the adaptive management calculations. Again, as folks will probably recall, there are two different methods for calculating adaptive management. The first one is if 10% or more of your monitoring plots did not meet either the milkweed or nectar plant cover, depending on which region you're in. And then the alternative method to that is the 90% confidence interval calculation. So this report that's run in the database runs both of those tests for you. So both the 10% or more lacking the required or target, I'll say target parameters for milkweed and or nectar plants, and then test 2, which is the 90% confidence interval.
Okay, I'm going to turn it back to you, Dawn.
Okay. Thanks, Carolyn. Okay, we're back to my ArcGIS Pro client. And to run the export tool, you come to the same set of shared tools that are with the project that we ship. And we will open up the Generate CCAA report. This is, and the first thing, we'll give it a title. This is what will show up on the header of the PDF, and also will be the file name that gets generated. Okay, once again, we're going to pick the org that we're interested in, the demo org. Where the output's going to go, let's go to that demo folder. As Carolyn mentioned, there's a PDF and a CSV file. There's actually a third file I'll talk about once we get there. Also gets generated. And here's where we get into these decisions, these filters here. First of all, you want to say what year the report is for, the region you're in, and then this checkbox here would say, do you want to include scorecards with baseline measurements? Each scorecard has two settings. One's baseline and one's, well, I'm going to say non-baseline. There's another name for it, but if you want to include those baseline measurements, then you would simply click that. And if you want to include scorecards that are not associated with the program, you would click this one right here. Otherwise, you would say, well, all my scorecards are associated with programs. I want to include these programs. So you can actually run a report on a subset of your data if you had a number of programs and you wanted to say, I want to run a report, per program. So we will click some of these, and then this is a matter of running it. Well, let's just run it. And once output will be put into this demo directory. And if you open up the details, it'll actually tell you the path to the files that's generating. Okay, so it's finished. We go into our demo directory. Well, we've got all of our photos there. We'll dig through here and find it. There we go. So here are the three files. The one you're probably most interested in is the PDF file. Once again, it's got the title we gave it. It'll have your org's logo, and then these are the results that were calculated based on all the criteria that Iris knows in great depth. But here are the two tests. We failed the first one, but we didn't meet the second one either. So we failed both of them. And here's some of the backup information on some of the statistical stuff that was generated by the report. The CSV, we'll kind of take a real quick look at that. I mean, there's a row per pollinator scorecard point, I think, is what's in the CSV file. The other file is a RPTX file, and that's an ArcGIS Pro report file. So if you wanted to do further customization to this PDF file, if you wanted to put some annotations in or whatever, if you wanted to add some additional information, you could open that RPTX file in ArcGIS Pro and actually do some kind of post-generation customizations of the report. So these three files are the ones that are generated right here. And that is all there is to the CCAA report. And any questions on that? Otherwise, I'll pass it back to Carolyn.
Hey, Don, I'll just add one more thing, just to note for folks that are submitting the CCAA annual report. So the PDF report corresponds pretty closely with the monitoring results calculator tab that folks might be familiar with. That was a tool that we also provided in the CCAA toolkit, separate from the geospatial database, that basically does those 90% confidence interval calculations for you. So instead of separately calculating your adaptive management thresholds using that monitoring results calculator, you can just submit this PDF report plus the CSV file corresponds with the effectiveness monitoring summary table. So just attaching those two files that Don just showed, the PDF file and the CSV file, to your annual report will satisfy the requirements of providing those documentation or that documentation as part of your annual report. So I think that's one of the major perks of running this tool, is it basically does all of that summarization and calculation for you.
All right, thanks, Iris. Carolyn, back to you.
Yeah, and I'll just have you keep sharing your screen in case somebody has a question that they want to they want you to walk through. Does anyone have any other questions? Any challenges working with this tool or anything like that?
Hey, I'll just share. I've heard from a few partners. I think they found this tool really helpful when they've used it, and so encourage others to do the same. It's nice having all the data pulled for you.
Thanks.
I guess maybe a question for maybe Don, maybe Caroline, maybe Iris, but have you had any, I guess, common questions from partners who are doing this for the first time? Or maybe questions or hangups people run into that's worth noting here?
One of the most recent questions we got, Don, could you scroll down on that report to the second page?
Yep.
See where it says selected programs. So that is just referring to, whether you decided to get the scorecard points associated with programs. If you didn't, then it's just going to be 0 programs, and it's not a big deal. And you can submit that for the CCAA report without hesitation. But just wanted to note that that's not a problem if it says 0 selected programs on the CCAA report.
Yeah, another thing is that even if you select a program, because we selected some, but if the programs don't have any scorecards in them, they don't show up. It'd probably been better to show the programs with all zeros, but just the way the report's generated. If the program doesn't have any scorecards associated with it, it doesn't show up in the list. And to answer part of your question, we haven't heard of any problems running the tool. I mean, some of the tools are inherently kind of complex, like the import tool is kind of complex. This one, I think, is a little simpler and doesn't have some of the complexities some of the other tools have. So as far as like the mechanics of running the tool, I haven't had any feedback.
That's a good question. Are there any other details that would be worth us going over one more time for everybody? Just so they can feel comfortable running this tool, or any other questions about saving the files? I know Don said that you could do a CSV file, and I saw him typing .csv. Anything like that would be helpful.
I'll add one more thing, Caroline, I forgot to mention, was that this method of, that kind of the quick method of exporting can really be run from any project. You don't need to be in, the rights of way project to do that. You just need to get access to your, in any project you have, you can go to the portal and bring in data from your rights of way REST endpoints. You don't have to be in the project that we ship with the product. So now, but to run the tools, these tools will only be in the what I call our shared project.
And Don, we're getting a request to run the export process once again. So you're kind of starting it. Will you do it one more time for us?
Yeah. The full export, I assume.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. It's so we're in this shared tools toolbox. That's once again in the what I call the shared project that is in your management group. And the only two things you have to specify is what organization you're doing this for and where the output is. We've been putting it, we can export over top of this. And launch it. We don't need to wait till it finishes, though. And once again, what you end up with is a file geodatabase on your local system that at that point, you can bring it into your map, or you can create a web map based on it. You can really do kind of anything you want with it.
And you can click the view details as well below to see what's going on.
Right. I always have a habit of doing that because you can kind of follow it along there.
Yeah. I saw Mike unmute. Mike, did you have another question?
Yeah, sorry, I had to find my unmute button again there. As we are, so this year, all the data that I collected was really just manual data collection with printed forms. So I'm not going to have a whole lot of questions about using these tools for our 2022 reporting. However, I guess I have a question. Who would be most appropriate, since this will be our first time reporting this year? Who would be most appropriate to send questions to, should I have any in the next week or two?
I think you could send them to me, and then I can also delegate as necessary, and I can pop in my email address again to the chat.
I appreciate that. I don't expect I'm going to have too much. The previous meetings, workshops, whatever you want to call them, you've had, it looks all pretty straightforward. So, but just wanted to ask that question as long as we're on the phone here.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, it's a pretty quiet group today. Oh, is someone else unmuting? No. Okay, it's a pretty quiet group, so I think that is everything, and I will share my screen once more, Dawn.
Okay.
So as I mentioned at the very beginning, we are posting these recordings to the working group website. We'll work on this, posting this one to the geospatial database tutorials page as soon as possible. And then next week is data sharing, or I'm sorry, not next week, next month, February is data sharing. And I will be sending out more emails and registration notifications about that. So if you have more questions, please feel free to email me. My email is down there, but it's also being put into the chat right now. And let us know if there's anything else that we can provide tutorials on, or if you're struggling with something specifically, please let us know.